Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of 6 for 6 Season 5, Episode 3. Ladies and gentlemen, we are keeping our status quo of getting 500 in our correct picks. We're back at it again with our last episode, a 3 for 3, perfect, you could say, matchup that we're getting for our wins and losses, which improves our record for Season 5, ladies and gentlemen, 6-6. We're a 500 team. Mike Tomlin would be proud of how we are picking our games thus far, but we're trying to get more wins and losses. So hopefully this week we can turn that around with some key games to swing it in our favor to get some more wins compared to losses this week and break this 3 for 3 trend that we're doing. Because, I mean, we can get a pick 3 at this rate, but we want a glorious 6-piece nugget meal, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're going to go with here on 6 for 6 for this week's episode. We got a little bit longer because we have more details and more analysts to break down women's college basketball because we got one game in, a couple men's college basketball games, and then the 2 NFL games to wrap up the NFC and AFC Championship game. So let's get the show on the road, ladies and gentlemen. In the 6th slot, ladies and gentlemen, we have Ohio State women's basketball, number 12 in the nation, versus Iowa women's basketball, who is number 10 in the nation. Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time on Peacock. This is January 25th, ladies and gentlemen. A key thing to mention that, yes, it's before some of the playoff games that we got going on in the NFL, but you can watch that to lead into it if you don't want to watch all the pregame analysis of those games leading up to it. I think this is a perfect way to kick off your Sunday leading into those games for sure. But ladies and gentlemen, let's break down this game real quick. Ohio State women's basketball right now is 17-2 with a Big Ten record of 6-1. Very good across the board. Iowa can kind of almost return the same favor as a 16-2 record with a 7-0 record in the Big Ten right now. Very dominant from this Iowa Hawkeyes team right now. They have a 67.8% chance of victory compared to Ohio State's women's 32.2% chance of victory, ladies and gentlemen. But as we break down some of their, stats, I mean, Ohio State women's team likes to score points. I mean, on average, they're averaging about 85 points a game compared to Iowa's 80 points per game. But against defense is relatively similar. Iowa gives about almost 62. Ohio State 63 points given up. But from the field, ladies and gentlemen, Iowa shoots a little bit better with 49% percentage from the field compared to Ohio State's 46. But when you break that down, that huge 3 percentage is going to really show up in this game 100%, ladies and gentlemen. But Iowa likes to rebound more, which you can kind of see kind of helps in their margin of victory for some of their games. But Ohio State is a scrappy team on the defensive front. They average about almost 13 steals a game with almost 5 blocks per game. So very good across the board on how this Ohio State women's team is going to be playing. Even though they're going to be on the road in Iowa, very tough environment to do. I think they're going to find a way to win this one, but it's going to be very close, very physical matchup. But give me the Ohio State Buckeyes to win this one in women's college basketball on Saturday, ladies and gentlemen. Not on Saturday. On 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time on Peacock. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, in the 5th slot, we got number 6, Houston versus number 12, Texas Tech men's college basketball, ladies and gentlemen. Saturday, January 24th, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 3:30 p.m. Pacific Time on ESPN. They played Texas Tech already this season back on January 6th. And Houston won by 4 points, 69-65 in this close shootout that they had. But I think Houston's about to capitalize on it again and beat them. But, ladies and gentlemen, Texas Tech likes to score a lot of points. But, ladies and gentlemen, Houston is able to keep teams at bay on their defensive front. But let's break it down. Texas Tech doesn't really have defense. They're giving up about 73 points per game compared to Houston's 60 points a game. So that margin is very big, ladies and gentlemen. You can't do that as you start ramping up to the tournament. So without further ado, let's make it clean, make it cut and dry. Give me Houston to win it, even though it's going to be another close matchup for these two schools. You can catch number 6 Houston versus Texas Tech, who's number 12 in the nation. Men's college basketball, Saturday, January 24th, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 3:30 p.m. Pacific Time on ESPN. Next up, we have number 11 Illinois versus number 4 Purdue in a heartbreaking loss that they're coming off of the Boilermakers, but they're getting back out on the hoops on Saturday, January 24th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific Time on Fox, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see how this breaks down, how this fares for everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Purdue is 17-2 with a Big Ten record of 7-1, ladies and gentlemen, compared to Illinois record of 7-1 Big Ten record. Ladies and gentlemen, Purdue came off of a tough loss to UCLA, 69-67, which is going to impact them on this one. But if we're looking at a common opponents, they both play Iowa, relatively close, about similar points per margin. When Purdue played Iowa, it was 79-72, winning by 7. And then Iowa and Illinois, when they played, was 75-69, almost that for that point, ladies and gentlemen. So about a 6-point margin of victory. So relatively close when they played a common Big Ten opponent. I wouldn't be surprised if we get another close one between these two schools. But if we try to break this down a little bit further, Purdue gets more steals, but Illinois gets more blocks. So it's going to be very close on that front. Points against these two schools, relatively similar, about 68 points given up against each other. But Illinois has the slight edge when you make out the total points of 85-84. But I like Purdue in this matchup, coming off of that tough loss to UCLA. I think they're going to turn it around this week and get back into the win column. So give me Purdue to win this matchup. You can catch number 11 Illinois versus number 4 Purdue men's college basketball, January 24th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific Time on Fox. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going into the third slot versus Virginia, number 14 in the nation, men's college basketball, January 24th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time on ESPN. Virginia fighting hard in their early runs of the ACC, looking very dominant with a record of 5-1 in the ACC. Overall record this season, 16-2, compared to North Carolina's 15-4 and 3-3 in the ACC, ladies and gentlemen. Virginia, very dominant in scoring points with 84 points per game. Defense for points allowed, 69 for North Carolina, 67 for Virginia, ladies and gentlemen, in this matchup. Margins are looking very healthy, more on towards the Virginia front. Very defensive bunch that we got going on here in Virginia. So give me Virginia in the matchup. Their only common opponent that we ended up seeing in the last 5 games. We got SMU, where Virginia won 72-67. Where North Carolina lost 97-83, ladies and gentlemen. They also had another common opponent in Cal, where Virginia won 84-60, but North Carolina lost 84-79. With that common trend being very prevalent between North Carolina and Virginia, I like Virginia easily in this one. So give me Virginia to win this matchup. You can catch North Carolina, number 22 in the nation, versus Virginia, who's number 14 in the nation. Men's college basketball, Saturday, January 24th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time on ESPN. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the NFL. We got Patriots, Broncos, AFC Championship, Sunday, January 25th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific Time on CBS and on Paramount, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, we got an interesting matchup for ourselves going in this week. Patriots looking pretty good with Drake May, but losing for the Broncos, Bo Nix. I think this one's going to lean more towards the Patriots. And with how physical the Patriots defense is going to be, based on how Denver has been playing a lot of the teams, common opponents within the last 5 games. It's the Chargers. They both held the Chargers at 3 points. Broncos got 19-3, but that's when Chargers were resting their starters. And when the Chargers were playing their starters, Foxborough held the Chargers at 3. The Patriots 16-3 in that sense. So without Bo Nix in the scenario, this game is lopsided more towards the Patriots in this one. But you don't want to down out the Broncos with their defense. Maybe their defense can create some key stops and short fields for that offense. But I think the Patriots get this one. You can catch Patriots, Broncos, AFC Championship game, Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern, Paramount. Let's reveal the game of the week. We're not going to do a quick recap to reveal the game of the week. I think we're just at that point where we can hit the number one and then recap everything and then get you on out of here. I think that's a clean approach to 6 for 6, ladies and gentlemen. So in the game of the week, ladies and gentlemen, we got Rams, Seahawks, NFC Championship game, Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, 3:30 p.m. Pacific time on Fox, ladies and gentlemen. Matthew Stafford is trying to cap off his MVP season in a quest to get his second Lombardi trophy, where you have Sam Darnold trying to get to the promised land, first time in his career to reach the Super Bowl in his career. It's going to be a tough one, but the Seahawks have came out to be physical in this matchup. They got the bye, and they showed that they took care of the 49ers without any problem, 41-6, where the Rams are starting to struggle, where they played a fantastic try to make things interesting in overtime, but then they barely edge it out against the Panthers. I have no idea what this Rams team is going to do. I think their defense is going to get a lot of points, and I think Seattle is going to find ways to capitalize on it, and we're going to get another thrilling matchup in the NFC, ladies and gentlemen. But most likely, I would say whoever comes out of this will most likely be the Super Bowl champion, in my opinion. But I think Matthew Stafford gets his second ring, ladies and gentlemen, and etches his name more into the NFL Hall of Fame by possibly winning an MVP at the end of this season, and if not, another Super Bowl championship underneath his belt. So you can catch Rams, Seahawks, NFC Championship game, Sunday, January 25th, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, 3:30 p.m. Pacific time on Fox, and I have the Rams to win it. We'll get you on out of here so you can enjoy the games that are coming up this weekend. And the 6th slot, ladies and gentlemen, we have number 12 Ohio State versus number 10 Iowa women's college basketball, Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern time, 11 a.m. Pacific time on Peacock, and I have Ohio State winning it. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have Houston, who's number 6 in the nation, versus Texas Tech, who's number 12, men's college basketball, Saturday, January 24th, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, 3:30 p.m. Pacific time on ESPN, and I have Houston winning this matchup. And the 4th slot, ladies and gentlemen, we have Illinois, who's number 11 in the nation, versus Purdue, who's number 4, men's college basketball, Saturday, January 24th, 3 p.m. Eastern time, noon Pacific time on Fox, and I have Purdue winning this matchup. And the 4th slot, ladies and gentlemen, we have number 22, North Carolina. In the 3rd slot, we have number 22, North Carolina versus number 14, Virginia, men's college basketball, 2 p.m. Eastern time, 11 a.m. Pacific time on ESPN, and I have Virginia winning this matchup. In the 2nd slot, ladies and gentlemen, we have Patriots Broncos AFC Championship game, Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, noon Pacific time on CBS or on Paramount. And I have the Patriots winning this matchup. And like I said before, ladies and gentlemen, the game of the week, Rams, Seahawks, NFC Championship game, Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, 3:30 p.m. Pacific time on Fox, ladies and gentlemen, and I have the Rams winning it. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, we have a fantastic show running here on 6 for 6. We have our 3 slot right now, ladies and gentlemen, 3-3 across the board on top of that as well. And our overall record for season 5, ladies and gentlemen, is 6-6. And when we get this broadcast up, which will be will be tomorrow, I also want to shout out my other show that I have is Gridiron Gridlocks. That will be a pre-game show going into women's and men's college basketball on Saturdays and for Sunday matchups to line that out. So you guys can tune into that to start your Saturday and your weekend at 11 a.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. Pacific time, 8 a.m. Pacific time on 6 for 6, our official page, and on the Empty the Bench Network, also known as ETB. So we'll catch you all next time here on 6 for 6. So long for now. Bye-bye.